Greetings and welcome to Montpelier Connection. This is the show on BCTV that helps bring our work in the legislature back here to Windham County. And we want to thank BCTV for helping make that work more accessible to you. It's getting close to the holidays, getting close to the new year, so we are getting ready for the 2020 legislative session. As you know, Vermont has a part-time legislature from January to May, so during that condensed period of time, we have to do all our work for the year. As we look at the session to come, today's guest is Senator Jeanette White.
Hi.
Thanks for coming, Jeanette.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for all your service, going back to the Select Board in Putney and working your way up to here you are representing us in the Senate.
I don't know if I would say working my way up.
Well,
I would say someplace different.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time here because I know, like most of us, you work another job
Yep.
and you've been working a lot at Brattleboro Housing because they've had somebody out sick.
Right, and I'm not really an employee.
Yeah.
They just hire me to do special projects and cover when somebody is gone. And
Yeah. But like most of us, we work in the off session, and so it's still a busy time for us.
Yeah.
Now, you're on two committees,
I am.
as all senators are, because there's only 30 senators and there's 150 House members. So you're chair of Senate Government Operations, and then
Yes.
you're also on the Judiciary Committee. Looking ahead, what's on the agenda for Senate Government Operations?
Well, I think that there probably isn't anything around elections this year necessarily. We've done a lot in the past around automatic voter registration.
Yeah.
When you renew your driver's license, you can register online now. You can go to your town clerk's office, same day voting. And so we've done made a lot of changes lately.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any kind of major change going to happen this year. But I should say that one of the things that we've been looking at and that the Secretary of State, Jim Condos, has been very up on is cybersecurity of our elections systems. And he is part of a national Secretary of State's group, and Vermont is leading in that, and the town clerks are all getting trained on it, and I think our systems are pretty impenetrable.
And we still have a paper trail.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. By law, we are required to always have a paper trail in elections.
Yeah. Other states don't, but they're starting to look at that to make sure they have that record of how people actually voted.
Right.
So in the last election, there's been a lot of publicity about the Russians and their attempt to influence our political discourse. But they weren't able to really get into any election data, were they?
No, I think it was more social media and telling people that polls weren't open and that they couldn't vote, and if you didn't vote today, it was that kind of thing. I don't know in some states if they were able to. I don't know at all, but in Vermont they couldn't, and it's really hard to do it here because we have 250 clerks that are the keepers of the elections in their towns.
So there's not a big concern that we're susceptible to
not with
foreign
our
player.
No, not with our election systems. And I think the same is true in the Secretary of State's office. He's done a great job on the the business, the incorporation, the business section where people file all their papers of incorporation.
Yeah.
And vital records, we've tightened that up a lot. So.
Now, in regard to records,
Oh yes.
there has been some controversy in the news lately about policies around public records and who can get them and whether they should pay for them or not. Can you shed a little light on that?
Well, I think there's some misunderstanding, and I read the case, and there was a dissent. It wasn't a unanimous decision, and I believe that. So the way public records requests works, you go in and you ask for public records. If the agency that you're asking from has to spend more than half an hour either finding it or putting it together or redacting personal information, because a lot of that has to be redacted. You can't give out people's social security numbers and home addresses and stuff. If you spend more than half an hour, then the statute said that you can charge for that. And there's a what do you call it, chart that says if it's this level person, you can charge this much, and if it's the governor that's doing it, you can charge more. But I think there was a misunderstanding. The Supreme Court felt that the statute was not clear, and so you could only charge if people were asking to make copies, and regardless of how much time the agency spent preparing it, you couldn't charge if they only wanted to look at it. And so now looking at it, you can go in with your phone and look at it and take a picture. And what the Attorney General said is that we're not going to allow you to take pictures because we had to spend all the time preparing it. So we'll try and clear that up this year. I think that from my remembering of what we did before, that this was just maybe the statute wasn't clear enough, or so.
And that's the way the process works. We put a law together, and then some things come up that they might not seem to have thought of beforehand. So we go back and we look at it again.
And there are issues around public records. What is a public record? How much for municipalities, for example, how much of their employee information is public record, and of course there was just the big flap in Digger about the DMV, and they do. Is that a public record or isn't it a public record? And actually, public records you can't sell them. But this is a little bit different. So we'll be looking at that issue and having DMV come in. And
I think there's going to be some discussion about that, because I've heard from some people already who are not happy, and I'm not so happy about that either. As we move forward into the data age, our data should be ours.
It is, but the people they're sharing, people they're sharing it with are insurance companies, law enforcement agencies, and they get it anyway. Law enforcement agencies can get it. And so if it's available to law enforcement agencies, is it really confidential or not? And do we really have any private information anyway?
I think that's going to be an ongoing discussion.
I think that we're, given social media and what people post themselves and with their information, I don't think there is such a thing as privacy.
Well, I think many people are looking at this. I know personally I now use a different search engine on my computers that doesn't mine that data. It's not the big ones. It's a smaller one, and if you look online, I don't want to be advertising one over another, but there are search engines now, because otherwise, whenever you search, that data then gets stored and put into a file.
And my guess is that it won't be long before the smaller ones start doing the same thing, because they're going to figure out that they need to have revenue from those.
Well, this one in particular, and I can tell you about it later, advertising that they're not going to do it, and they have another way to make money without selling your data. So that's what makes it attractive to some people.
But we will be looking at that with the DMV and what is public and what isn't public.
Yeah.
And
at one point, there was a lot of discussion about what records are exempt from the public record laws. Has that been settled, or is that still an ongoing process?
Well, it's never settled, because no matter what you do, some people think something else should be exempt, and some people think that whatever is exempt should not be.
So what kind of things were exempt?
Well, we have the public records law says that everything is available to the public unless it's specifically exempted. and things, anything that has personal information is exempt. Now, you can get a record, but all the personal information has to be redacted. So it doesn't mean that the whole file is exempt. Proprietary information from companies, because all companies register with the Secretary of State's office. Insurance companies register with Department of Financial Regulation. So all of that proprietary information, there's big discussion over whether, I'm going to get the term wrong here, but the manure management systems that farms use, is that, does that have proprietary information so it should be exempt or not? We have 260 some exemptions, and we went 3 years ago, we went through every single one of them and decided, and there were people that said we should only have 10, but if you have 10, they're going to be so broad that, because what does it mean to have 10 and they're going to be broad? So we have very specific exemptions.
Were you thinking of the methane digesters before?
No, there's nutrient management systems. That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it's called, and it's how you dispose of your manure and what you do with it, and how does it leach into the water system and stuff.
Yeah.
So, we'll open meeting laws and public records law are never settled. Yep. They will always be on every year.
In every year, your committee oversees the Office of Professional Management, right?
Right, professional
regulations.
Yeah.
So they license various professions in Vermont. Right. And certain ones come up for renewal or review?
No, the way it works usually is that as changes are made in the profession itself, the either board or the advisors to that profession bring suggestions to us for change. And we're looking at two different things right now. One is around the whole issue with climate change is, of course, we know, a huge issue. And what are we going to do about it? And we continue to build houses, and we continue to put in HVAC systems and all of that. But so people who are doing those kinds of jobs, should they have specialized training in good practices around for climate change and greenhouse emissions, and realtors, what kind of training do they have around that? So, we're looking at that with the professions, and then the other thing we're looking at is, we know we have a workforce shortage in Vermont, and we also know that we have some refugees, and we know that a lot of refugees come with skills, but when they come, those skills aren't necessarily transferable. Yeah. So the Office of Professional Regulation has spent a fair amount of time last year, and we're going to continue it this year, looking at how can we make those skills transferable. If somebody is a doctor somewhere and they come here, can they just take a few courses? Can they do it? Because you don't want people to have jobs that aren't in their own profession. It's bad for us, it's bad for the state, it's bad for them, and it puts them in a dead end a lot of times. So those are the two things that we'll be working on this year.
Interestingly, in our history, whenever there have been labor shortages, we've relied on immigrants coming into this country, and right now that seems to be at odds with what the president is trying to do to keep people out at a time when we really, right across every business sector, people are really struggling to find employees and good employees.
Employees and children to put in our schools.
So hopefully we can loosen that up after the next election.
Well, and even what we have right now, even the refugees that we have, making it easier for them to practice their profession when they get here.
Because we're getting short on tradespepeople too.
Yeah, we really
Try
are.
and find an electrician or a plumber, unless it's a dire emergency, and they're just backed up.
Yeah.
Because there's a shortage now, so we need to get some more trained, skilled workers here.
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Judiciary Committee. You sit on the House Judiciary Committee that Senator Sears chairs.
No, not the House Judiciary Committee.
I'm sorry, the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Senator Sears oversees that.
Yes.
Now, each year there's a number of pretty hot issues that come up, and Firearm reform has traditionally been one of them over the last few sessions. What kind of things are you looking going into the second year, and also aware that the second year of a biennium can be a little more pressure-packed because people know that bills they want to get through need to pass or
Right.
else they go away?
Well, we are hoping that the House will do something with marijuana this year. That came out of the Judiciary Committee, and it was a really good bill, and we're hoping that it'll at least get to conference committee where we can hash out the differences. We're looking at right now we're working with the Council on State Governments has a Justice Center,
Yeah.
and we're working with them on what we're calling
Reinvestment too.
Reinvestment 2, that's
Yeah.
what it's called. And looking at, I don't know if you know it, but we have a lot of people who are incarcerated who probably shouldn't be. But in 2010, there was a prediction that if we followed the trajectory that we were on at that time, that in 2019 we would have 2,700 people in prison. Yeah. And we now have 1,700. Yeah. So we have done things. And we did, one of the things that we have to keep working on details around is the juvenile justice issue. We, what happens is, as a result of some crimes that were committed a number of years ago by some young people, any crimes committed by people, even kids at a certain level, were started in criminal court. So we've changed that so all cases, there's a couple exceptions that they can, if there's an agreement between the state's attorney and the defender, they can start it in criminal court. But as of now, all cases involving an 18-year-old will start in family court. And the reason for that is that in family court, they're not public cases. And then if there's a need, it can be transferred to criminal court.
So that means the proceedings are closed to the public.
Right. And so the kids have a better chance of, and we know that kids sometimes do things in their youth that can change their lives forever, and this will hopefully give them a chance to correct that. And then and because they'll be having case managers or getting therapy or whatever it is through family court. But if it needs to be transferred, it can be transferred to criminal court. But they'll start there, and then as of, I think it's next year, it goes up to age 19 and eventually up to age 21.
Yeah.
And we're the first, the juvenile justice people are really excited about that because we are the first state to do that, and it is a huge, huge change. And I think it's really exciting, and so we're looking forward to do that. But there are tweaks that have to be done every year because how does it affect DCF and how does it affect corrections and
the courts
and stuff. So we're making those changes.
Right now, the family court dockets are pretty full as they are.
Yeah.
So if we start adding to that, we may need more judges or.
Right, and I don't know how it'll affect, but and then we do have a bill that's new this year, and there's a group that's been working on it kind of all over the summer and fall on eliminating life without parole. Mm-hmm. And because we still have that on our books, and just eliminating it as a possibility, and looking at things like who are people that are in prison that could be better treated outside of prison in a more humane manner, but also to allow them to pay back their communities and continue to survive in their communities and do well.
Yeah.
So
now, last year we started to have some discussions around some of our prison population that's aging. anything come of that where maybe different ways of dealing with them, especially if they're ill?
Well, we have, I have a bill in, and I don't even, it's called compassionate release, I think is what it's called, and it would give aging prisoners an automatic parole hearing. It doesn't mean they would automatically be allowed out on parole, but it would at least give them a hearing at a certain point. And we're looking at kind of a look back after a certain number of years after a crime has been committed. Are you still, should you still be in prison, or should you have some other whether it's confinement or treatment or whatever? And I don't. One of the problems that we heard with, and this isn't true with all of the aging prisoners, but a lot of the aging prisoners are very ill, and some of them are hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a home, and their families may not want them home, nursing homes won't take them.
Oh, really?
Some of them are very difficult to handle. But we should be doing it on a case-by-case basis. And I have to say, I think our commissioner, Mike Touchette, is really looking at how to best treat people. And one of the things he's doing, which is very exciting, I think, is if you've been in prison for a while, you probably didn't keep your driver's license renewed. You don't have any, you probably don't have any IDs. And he's working really hard with Social Security and DMV to get IDs for people so that when they come out, they have something. And that's a big deal. And the Community Justice Center here is very happy that they're doing that.
This is a different world than when many people were incarcerated, and having IDs is really a essential piece right now. Now, speaking of the community justice centers, we all know they're doing such great work, and for years their budget has pretty much been level funded, and yet they're, like a lot of services, the caseload requirements are going up and the needs are going up. Do you think there's going to be a push this year to try and increase their funding?
I have no idea. I think there are so many areas where we need to put additional funding, but we ought to, as we start having fewer people who need to be incarcerated, it should be costing us less, because it costs, I think it's $55,000 a year to keep a male in prison and $75,000 to keep a female in prison for a year. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
We could.
It's more than an Ivy League education.
It is. It is. I once had suggested that we might want to just think about taking anybody who had nonviolent sentences and crimes and send them to college instead of prison.
Yeah.
Pay for them to go to college. It would help our colleges.
Yeah, it would.
But that didn't go over very well with a lot of people. But
as you go around, we've got a few minutes left. Are there other areas that you're hearing of people's concerns about?
Well, like everybody, we're hearing a lot about climate change. Act 250. That is, and I have no idea what's.
What are you hearing from people around Act 250?
Well, it's very.
It's 50 years old now.
Yeah, and it's hard to know what you're hearing from people because there isn't anything concrete for them to react to. So people are just afraid that what's going to happen. I know that the agricultural community and the logging community are very nervous about what might happen. I think that there's some development issues that need to be addressed, and so I think people are just nervous and they don't have anything to react to because there's nothing definite yet that's come out of the House committee. So I'm hearing that, hearing a lot about our emergency medical services, which we are going to tackle this year. We have been working with Drew Hazelton down here at Rescue and with a person in UVM who's the head of rural medicine up there. to work on some of the certification requirements that we
Yeah.
have and the testing and everything. So
It's very expensive, isn't it?
it's very expensive, and it's also very inconvenient, and we make it difficult.
Yeah.
And we could do a lot better.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the issues that I'm hearing a lot about: law enforcement, dispatch.
And the organization of law enforcement, something you've talked about in the past. Is anything moving on that? 'Cause
Well,
we really don't have a system, I think, is what you've said.
well, we don't have a system. We have the state police, and then we have 85 agencies, law enforcement agencies in the state.
Yeah.
And we're looking at how we might improve that. We can't change it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't. We can make some changes that will be better. And I've been working with local law enforcement down here.
Yeah.
But I've also been working with Mike Sherling, who's the
Yeah.
new Commissioner of Public Safety.
Yeah.
He used to be the head of Burlington Police.
Yeah.
And he's a very outside the box
Yeah.
thinker. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And dispatch is the same way. We have a mishmash of dispatch, and
Yeah.
some people pay and some people don't, and so we're trying to deal with that also.
Yeah. It's creating systems where there haven't been, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as we wrap up here, if people have ideas, this is the time, or if they just want to get in touch with you, if they have a question or anything.
Call me at home,
And
email me,
yep.
either one. I'm in the phone book, and if you go to the legislative website
Yeah.
and look it up, all of our, well, for us anyway, still our home addresses and telephone numbers. I think that the House took theirs down.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, ours are still listed. And in terms of having ideas, if you had an idea for a piece of legislation,
Yeah.
it's too late.
Yeah.
The drafting deadline is Monday.
Yeah.
And so,
For the House, it's for long form. Yeah, so if you have short form bills, you can still submit them after that. But
we don't do short form.
yeah, in terms of other ideas, if people, let's say somebody's having trouble with Vermont Health Connect, is that something you're able to help people with?
Well, I can put them in touch with
Yeah.
people who might be able to help them.
Yeah.
I personally couldn't help anybody with it,
Yeah.
but I could get them to somebody who
Yeah.
could.
And many times our phone calls get answered quicker than somebody calling from somewhere else too.
Yeah, that's true, and that is a good thing that we can do that.
Yeah.
But I think our goal should be that we create a system that is so
Yeah.
easy to navigate, not only in Health Connect but in everything. The people don't have to call
Yeah.
us to
I
get
agree.
our interference or our help.
That's certainly the idea.
That's my goal with systems.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank
So,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, and looking forward to getting going again in January.
Yeah, I am, and in the meantime, having meetings down here with
Yeah.
all the groups, and it's great.
It is.
Yeah,
It's an honor to serve and to
it is.
help
And
make
it's
Vermont.
more of an honor all the time because you realize that some of the things you've managed to make at least everybody mad at least once. So,
Well,
Thank you.
On that happy note, thank you for your service, and thanks to BCTV too
Yes.
for their service. They help make this possible, and we certainly appreciate their work in bringing this to your home too. So until next time, take care.